Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm your host, Dr. Haider Shah. On behalf of Kalwas, I would like to welcome all you to this webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. Today we have very interesting topic and I'm really honored to welcome and introduce our distinguished guest speaker who is going to talk about the quantitative research methodology. Students often get confused regarding proper methodology and it's really a very interesting topic and very technical part of the thesis to learn about really. So today you will get the best insight, right guidance and suggestions about all these things as we have an expert with us today in this session. So stay tuned because an amazing stuff are coming ahead in this session. So before we start, I would like to thank the Kalwas for arranging such enlightenment sessions, for their support and providing such a wonderful platform. The aim of the Kalwas is to give you the opportunity to connect and interact with world renowned speakers, academic leaders, teachers, authors, researchers, experts, professionals, and businessmen to learn from their experiences, recommendations, suggestions, and tips which will create an impact and will enable you to learn and develop yourself in order to grow and transform individually as well as to contribute to the world in positive ways, as our slogan is come, learn, and share knowledge. So today we have an amazing person as a guest who has a wonderful experience. He is internationally known and recognized speaker. He is a great human being. He is always ready to support and contribute to the world in different ways. So let me introduce him formally. He is an associate professor and head of Department of Business School, World University Bangladesh. Previously, he worked at the International University of Agadir, Morocco, as an assistant professor. He received his PhD in business administration and Master of Management degree from International Islamic University, Malaysia. He has published several books, chapters, and many articles in the top peer-reviewed journals. He is the consulting editor for the Hospital Topics, Taylor and Francis, an associate editor for Iranian Journal of Management Studies, published by University of Tehran, and article editor for Sage Open Sage Publishing. He is the editorial advisory board member for International Journal of Business and Systems Research, IIUM Journal of Case Studies in Management, Indian Journal of Finance and Banking, International Journal of Accounting and Finance Review, the QOR newsletter, International Journal of Operations Management, American International Journal of Supply Chain Management, and many others. In addition to that, he has reviewed more than 240 papers for 68 peer-reviewed journals, Scopus and Web of Science. According to Babylon 2020 ranking, he was the top global reviewer in the area of behavioral sciences, rank 2, organizational behavior, rank 2, healthcare management, rank 3, and business and economics, rank 5, quality management, rank 6, and business management, rank 8. In 2018, he received the Top Peer Review Award. In 2015, he received the Best Paper Award from the 12th Academia for Global Business Administration, Malaysia. He was the moderator and organizing committee of fourth global conference on creating value 2021, organized by University of South Florida, USA. He was the secretary for 12th International Symposium on the Analytic Hierarchy Process 2013, Malaysia. He was invited by many higher education institutes to conduct training and workshops and lectures on research methodology, data analysis, and other topics in Malaysia, Morocco, Canada, Kuwait, India, and Bangladesh. His research area includes quality management, service management, healthcare management, organizational behavior, human resource management, and etc. Last but not the least, he's a wonderful speaker, author, teacher, researcher, professional, and above everything, he's a great human being. So please help me in welcoming our guest, Dr. Selim Ahmed. Welcome to Kalwa's platform, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Haider, for inviting me in this session, and also thanks the Kalwash for inviting me to share my knowledge with those are the participant here. I would like to share my slide to discuss about what is a quantitative research. So I'm gonna go step by step. So maybe end of the session there will be the question session. So in end of the session, if there is a question, the our moderator can ask, or the participant they may ask the question. So can I
Very
share my
helpful.
screen?
Yes, sure, please. Go ahead, Prof. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can you see
Prof,
my screen?
yes, Prof. Can you just click on the hide, the stop sharing one? There's a message that hide, please.
Okay. Is it clear?
Yes, Prof. It is clear, but there is one message blinking that hide. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay.
Completely fine. Thank you very much, Prof. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so the today topic is about the quantitative research, and I'm the speaker here, Dr. Selim Ahmed, who already introduced by Dr. Haider about myself. So let me introduce my university. This is my university is a Wall University of Bangladesh, which is located in Dhaka. It's near to international airport in Bangladesh, and this is a permanent campus. And if you visit in our country, you are most welcome to visit my campus. So today's session, I'm going to discuss several issues. First, I'm going to discuss about what is the research. Then I'm going to distinguish the two research techniques, the methodology. One is a qualitative research, another is a quantitative research. So after that, I'm going to discuss the structure of the quantitative research. After the structure of the quantitative research, then I'm going to discuss about the guidelines for publishing a research paper. If you have a research paper, if it's a quantitative paper, and how are you gonna publish it, and what are the way you need to follow to publish your paper. And last but not least, I'm going to discuss how to promote your research paper. The first thing is what is a research? The research is actually the systematic investigation which is conduct some phenomena using some material, some sources, and establish some fact and truth information. And after the find the facts, then make some conclusion, and then conclusion address some phenomena. Is it is a what going on? Is it related with the objective of the research or not? So in the social science research, there are two types. One is a qualitative research, another is a quantitative research. So before I go for the quantitative research, let me discuss about what is a qualitative research. So what is a qualitative research? The qualitative research is a process and a naturalistic inquiries that seeks in-depth understanding of social phenomena. So the qualitative research actually discuss the focus on the social phenomena, and is also discuss focus on the why rather than what actually happening in the society. So the qualitative research that actually focus on the human behaviors, say focus on the habit of the human, the culture, mentality, mindset, tendency, and other adjective of the respondents. So normally the quality research, actually the technique is quality research is the ethnography study. It can be like a focus group study. It can be case study. It can be like an interview other also. Though it's a qualitative research is a very interesting, but there is some limitations. One of the limitation is a qualitative research is a very difficult to gather the data. Another is a mining data is a very time consuming. Another limitation is a qualitative research creates a finding that are valuable but is difficult to present. Another limitation is the researcher, they can be biased when they go for the data collection. Another limitation is a qualitative research is a very difficult to use a statistical analysis. Also, it cannot be generalized. So as we know that there are some limitation of the quality research, therefore the many researchers, they like to use a quantitative research. So let me come to the quantitative research. So what is a quantitative research? The quantitative research methods emphasize on the objective measurement. So the quantitative research is actually the related with the quantitative objectives, and it's a use some of the statistical and numerical analysis to, and also use systematic process to collect the data through the pools of the questionnaire, survey, and or by manipulating pre-existing statistical. And quantitative research very much systematic, and it can be generalized the findings, and it can represent to the populations. So let me come to the structure of the quantitative research. There are 5 phases of the quantitative research. First phase is a literature review. Second phase is a research design. Third phase is a data collection. Fourth phase is a data analysis. Fifth is a findings and conclusion. So we're going to discuss these 5 phases in details in the next slides. The first one is a literature review. This is the very essential of the quantitative research. And if you have want to know the research idea, you need to read a lot from the journals, books, magazine, and other sources to get your research idea, also the research gap. And you need to also use some proper citations whenever you go for the literature review. So once you have the idea, research idea, then you need to define your research questions and research problems. And after that, you need to develop your research model according to your research questions. The research model or research framework can be developed according to the some literature review, some citations. And after you develop the research framework, then you can relate your framework with the hypotheses. So once you have the research framework and hypothesis, then you can identify the methods to test your research model and hypothesis. So after you identify the methods, then you need to define the populations, what could be your research target, who could be your respondents. After your populations, you need to define the sampling design, what kind of sampling you're going to use. Is it going to be the probability sampling or non-probability sampling? So after you define the probability sampling, you need to go for the sampling techniques. So under the probability sampling, there are also some other techniques such like a random sampling, the systematic sampling, stratified random sampling, cluster sampling. So these are the probability sampling techniques. Uh, Also, apart from the probability, there are also the non-probability sampling techniques, which are the cluster convenience samplings. Also, there are snowball sampling, purposive sampling. So there are also non-probability sampling techniques. So whenever you use any kind of the sampling techniques, you need to justify why you using this sampling techniques for your study. So after you define your sampling techniques, then you need to develop your survey questionnaire. The survey questionnaire you can develop based on the adaptation. You can get the survey questionnaire items from the previous studies, or you can develop the survey questionnaire based on the literature review or related to the study. And whenever you develop the survey questionnaire based on the literature review or according to the context of the study, then you need to do the pre-test your survey questionnaire. The pre-test survey questionnaire means that need to refer the survey questionnaire to someone who is an expert in the area. It can be one person, it can be more than one person. So whenever you refer to the expert, if the expert they given the comments or any feedback regarding your survey questionnaire, and you need to revise it, and after you make the correction, and you can go for the pilot test. The pilot test is that whenever you have the targets, say that you have 300 or 400 your targets, the survey target, before you go for the final survey, you can do some pilot test. The pilot test can be conducted with a 15 number of respondent or more than that. So once you have the pilot survey and need to test your survey questionnaire using the reliability and validity instrument. If you use some SPSS softwares, you can test the reliability using the Cronbach alpha and validity using the factor analysis. So once you have the survey questionnaire is reliable and valid, then you can finalize your survey questionnaire. Then you can go for the data collection which you are targeted. So after you design the research design, then you need to go for the data collection. So before you go for the data collection, you need to know how to determine the sample size. You can determine the sample size three ways. First is a use a formula to calculate the sample size. Second is a use a sampling table. Third is a use a statistical software. The first one is the use a calculator, uses formula to calculate the sample size. So you can see that here is one of the formula here. In this formula, if you use the, you can find out what could be your sample size. Just like here is a jet square. Jet means the jet score. You can find the jet score from the some statistical table. Like if you use a 95%, then the jet score will be 1.96. If your population P is that population proportion, so if your proportion is a your target, your population is a whatever the population you are targeting the 10%, then is a P will be 0.1 or 10% here. And E means the margin of error. So margin of error you need to decide, is it the will be the 5% or 1%. And then N means the population size. So here is the N. So if you use the formula, you can find out your the sample size, what would be your sample size for your study. And if you don't use the formula, you can use the sampling table. This is the table you can find from the Google. If you type on Google the sampling table for to determine the sample size, you can find the table like this. So here you can say that the population, if the population is a 10, if you use a confidence level 95% and margin of error is a 5%, the sample size will be 10. If your population is 100 and 5% marginal error, your sample size will be 18. If your population is 1000 and if you use a 5% margin of error, and your sample size will be 278. If you use a 1% margin error, and if your population is a 1000, then it will be 906. If your population is a 10,000 and for the 5% margin error, it will be 370. And for the 1% margin error, the population, the sample size will be 4,899. If you use if your population is like a 500,000, then your sample size will be 384. Even if you use 300 millions your population, your sample size will be 384. So normally if you use the sampling table or formula, if your population is more than 1 million, your sample size will be 384. And normally those are the expert scholars, they follow the 5% margin error for the confidence level 95%. Okay, the next one, if you use softwares, you can find out the number of the sample size. This is one of the link. Let me share my another screen to find out how you can calculate the sample size using the softwares, online softwares. Okay, let me go to another window. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Prof, it's visible. Carry on, please. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. If you go to this website, you see that how to calculate the sample size. And here is a option. First option is a jet score. Second is a population proportion. Then third one is a margin of error. And then fourth is a population size or n. So if you use a, you can see the here confidence interval to jet score to find out the jet score. If you jet score, if you use a 99%, then your jet score will be 2.58. If you use a 95%, then your jet score will be 1.96. If you use a 90%, then your jet score will be 1.645. So let me use this one 95%. Jet score is a 1.96. So first is jet score is a 95%, 1.96. Then population proportion. So let me decide that I'm gonna study whatever the target group. I'm gonna cover only the 5%. So if it's a 5%, then it will be 0.5. If you use a 10%, if your proportion is a 10%, then it will be 1.10. So this is 10%. I'm using the 0.10 and margin of error. So if you use a margin error is a 5%, that then it will be 0.05. If you use a 99%, then it will be 0.1. So let me use 5% margin error. So the need to also provide the information of the population size. If this population size is say that 100K. Okay. If it's a 100K, just provide 100K. If it's a 1 million, you can provide 1 million. If it's 50,000, you can provide 50,000 or 1,000, 10,000, whatever. So after that, you need to just click the calculate. So here it shows that you will need 138.11. Means that if you use this formula, and if your population is a 100,000, and if you are covering the 10% of the proportion of the population, you need a sample size 138. So if you change the proportion, say that 20%, then it will change. Then it will ask 245%. So it will every time, so you can decide what could be your population based on the Z score, proportion of the population, and margin error and population size. Okay, let me go to my slide. The next one is if you use a structure equation modeling. So for the structure equation modeling, you also can use softwares to decide your sample size. So this one I'm going to show you here. Can you see this screen?
Yes, Prof, it's visible. Thank you.
Okay. So if you use a structure equation modeling, whether you're using AMOS or the smart PLS, you can use this one for determine your sample size. So you can see that anticipated effect size, desired statistical power level, number of latent variable, number of observed variable, and probability level. So if your anticipated size is a say that using the 50% or 1%, whatever, you can decide here. The power is desired statistical power, it will be 8. Normally it is using 8 latent variable. So if you have the variable under your model, say that you have the 4 variable, and each variable has a 5 items. So altogether 5 multiply 4 is 20 items, and probability level is a 5% level, 0.05. So then what will be your sample size for using the structure equation modeling? They ask for minimum sample size defect uh, detect effect 1454. Minimum sample size for the model is structure equation modeling, minimum 100. So it's recommended that you need a sample size 1454, but if you use 100, at least 100 for your sample size, it can be acceptable. So you can decide how many you need the sample size based on your latent variable and number of observed variable, and also desired statistical power. So you can decide this one, your sample size here. Okay, let me go to my next slides. So the next phase, third phase, is a data collection. So when you go for the data collection, you need to consider some of the factors. Need to be considered before you collect the data. You need to know your data types, whether it's a primary source data or a secondary source data you're gonna use it, and what could be the methods for your primary source data and secondary source data. You need to decide, and after you collect the data, you need to code your data, and you need to mine your data in the softwares if you use a software. So what could be the factors you need to consider before you collect your data? You need to know that what kind of data you're gonna collect, and what is the objective of the data collection or the investigation or survey, and what sources you're gonna collect your data or information. You need also the funding for your collection for collecting data, because if you collect the data from using the physical way, the physical contact, then sometimes you need some fund to collect the data. And you need to also use some techniques. You need to decide what kind of techniques you're gonna use for collecting data. Is it the online survey data, or using the phone, or rather like a physical face-to-face collection data? So you need to decide what techniques you're going to use. Another is the availability of the trained person. So if you use some other people who are not the researcher, but they who gonna help to collect the data, so before they go for the collecting data, they need some training about the survey. So if they get training, and if they have the idea, might be they can get the proper data from the respondents. So types of data. So, there are two types of data which can be used in the quantitative research. One is a primary data, another is a secondary data. So the primary data actually deals with the description, that the data can be observed but cannot be measured. It can be color, it can be perception of the people, it can be like a coat, feather, or other things. Secondary data is a number that can be measured. It can be height, weights, or other things. So what are the method can be considered for the primary data? So primary data can be collected through the interview. It can be collected through the observation, questionnaire, case study, interview, survey, or indirect oral investigation. Secondary data is the data already published, already is collected by some other organization or other people, and it's already published, but it's not analyzed and created as information. So that data can be find out from the some published source, such like annual report, or from the some online source such like a Bloomberg data stream, or could be like a journals or other sources also can be. So secondary sources data can be used for the quantitative research. So after collected data, then data need to be code. It need to be defined what sort of is the data and what where it could be is a coded. It could be the entry in some softwares. And after is a coded data and mine in the data, then it can be started as a analyzing. So for the phase 4 is a data analyzing. So after collected data, it need to be analyzed. So when you go for the analyzing, we need to keep in mind that our findings should be related with the research objectives. So whenever we analyze the data, we need to use appropriate tools or softwares to find the appropriate results, and those are results are related with the research objectives that can be used. Other unnecessary might be can be put as a not to use it, but if you want to use it, then you can use as an appendix. So after you analyze your data, use some appropriate tables and figure to present your data and also explain your findings uh, related to the research objectives and the research model. And the phase 5 is the findings and conclusions. Once you have the findings, you need to discuss your overall findings, and your findings must can be related with previous studies. And you can also provide some justification if you have uh, eh, some findings which is a created a new things. So if you want to keep it, so you need to provide some justification why your findings need to be in your study. And you also need to provide some implication. It can be like a theoretical implications, or how your findings can be implement in the theories, and also the practical implications, or we call the managerial implications, how your finding can be implemented in the practitioners in the industry to make decisions. And you need to provide some conclusion or the overall finding, what can be, it can be helpful for the academia and the industry. And last but not least is a limitation. You need to provide the limitation of your studies and provide some direction for the further studies. So after you prepare your research paper, finishing your research paper or research project, you can convert to prepare for the publication. So here are some guidelines how you can prepare your research paper. First is you need to find the appropriate journal. Whenever you prepare your research paper, paper must be related with a relevant journal. If it's like a marketing research paper, it should be focused on the marketing research, marketing journal. And before you submit your research paper, you need to read the author guidelines carefully. If your paper is not follow the guidelines of the journal, if you submit immediately, journal they can return to you, and they're going to ask you to prepare again to submit to the journal. Next is prepare the manuscript according to the guidelines. As I said that whatever the guidelines they given, you need to follow the guidelines. If you don't follow the guidelines, sometimes they can reject your paper immediately. The next one is a professional proofreading to improve the quality of the paper. So before you submit your paper, try to refer your paper to someone who is an expert in English, especially the English can be corrected. Another thing is that if the proofreader, they can also go through your content of the paper. If they find the content is inappropriate, they can ask you to revise it. So the proofreader can help you to improve your paper, the quality of the paper. Next is include the author name according to the contribution. So if you have the co-author, please include their name according to their contribution. So if you don't put their name, might be they can claim the authorship. It can violate it can be the we call the interest of the conflict of the interest. They can also go for the legal issue. They can sue you if they find their name is not appear in the paper. So be careful about the author name and their contributions. Next is that do not submit the paper in the several journals simultaneously. So some of the researchers, they do that, they submit the paper in the different journal at the same time, and they wait for the result. But if any journal they find out if you submit the paper in elsewhere at the same time their journal, they can blacklist to you. They will not allow you in the next time. They can reject your paper immediately. In the future, they will not allow you to submit any paper. So it's illegal. I am not sure this is illegal, but it's unethical. So do not submit your paper when it's already submitted in somewhere. Revise the paper according to the reviewer comments. So once you submit a paper, if it goes for the under review, after the review, the reviewer will give you the comments. If they give you some comments and ask for the improvement, you need to revise it according to the reviewer comments. Try not to argue with the reviewers, because if you argue with the reviewers, sometimes they're not gonna be happy with your the response, so they can take a negative decision. So try to follow their reviewer comments. But if you have some justification, try to provide the justifications, because I found that sometimes some reviewer they given the comments, but that comments actually not relevant for the journals, for the paper. So I given the justification why I'm not going to revise that things in the paper. Next is if paper is rejected, try other relevant journal. So sometimes your paper will, even your paper is a good quality paper, but it can be rejected, because paper rejected due to the different reasons. It can be like if the journal is a very high impact journal, the rejection rate is a very high. It can be 90%, 95%, because they get lots of paper submission. So they make a decision that only the high quality paper could be accepted. So that's why they reject the paper. But if your paper rejected from some journal, try to other journal. So you keep try, and remember that if sometimes they reject a paper, they give you the comments. uh, Try to read the comments of the editor or the reviewers, and improve your paper and try other journal. So it takes time for the publish your paper if you try to publish in quality journal. Next one is how to promote your research paper. After you accept your paper or publish your paper, you can promote your paper. So for the promotion, you need to know that how you can promote your paper. So first, you need to read the journal publisher policy before you share the paper. So some of the publisher, they have some policy that once it's to publish within the 6 month, 1 year, or 2 years, you cannot share the full paper publicly. Maybe you can share this only the first page, only the abstract. You can share the paper link in the social networks. If you don't share the full paper, but you can share the link in the social network, it can be shared in the Facebook, Linkit, or Twitter, or Instagram. Add your paper in the research networks such as Google Scholar, ResearchGate, personal web page, and others. So if your paper already accepted, say appear in the online, you can claim in your Google Scholar page, ResearchGate, and also if you have the personal website, you can also provide the citation link or the paper link in your website. Share the paper with the students, colleagues, and friends. You can share your papers with your student and colleagues and friends, uh, but not publicly. But if your friends ask you through the private email, maybe you can share. Request your university library to subscribe your paper. So if your university they can subscribe your paper, then it can be open for the faculty and the students. Do not upload the full paper immediately after publishing unless it's an open access journal. So open access journal you can share anytime, anywhere. But if it's a unpaid journal and it's not open access, So you need to know that how and where you can, when you can share the paper. If anyone is interested in your paper, you may send it through the private email. Sometime you'll get some email or message from the other scholars, researcher, regarding your paper. So if they ask you, if they request you, maybe you can send them through email, not to share the public page in the public social networks. So that's all. Thank you for this session. And if you would like to find me, you can find me in the LinkedIn page. So this is my profile in LinkedIn, and this is my profile in ResearchGate. And that's all. If you have any question, you may ask me now.
Yes, thank you very much, Prof, for such a wonderful and elaborative presentation. And I love the way you started the research definition itself, that what is research, and then very nicely you have mentioned that what is the qualitative and quantitative. And above everything, I like the way you mention in phases, the phase one, phase two, and phase three. And I love the way you explain like a hands-on practice. You this is the beauty of the expert who has been conducting workshop trainings and webinars. They know how to tell the things and how to share the particularly the hands-on practice, which is very much important. I love that aspect of your presentation, that you actually showed them how can you calculate the sample size. As an expert, you know the most of the time we are confused with the sample size technique, and you have rightly picked that problem and you have explained it very well. So wonderful presentation and very powerful content. Thank you very much for such a elaborative presentation. We have few questions. If you allow me, can we start it, please?
Please.
Yes, okay. The first question we have is as an expert, you know that most of the researchers they adopt the quantitative research methodology. So their question is, Prof, please let us know why do researchers prefer using quantitative research more often than that qualitative or mixed method? Yes, please.
Okay, this is a good question. Thank you, whoever asked the question, because of the quantitative research is a systematic research, as I said that, and that the findings can be generalized. Because of the finding can be generalized, and most of the publisher they want to publish the quantitative research, because like you conducted research in Malaysia, that finding can be related with even if you study conducted in India or Pakistan or USA. So the quantitative research can be generalized. Because of that, it's easy to publish, and even as a systematic approach, as you see in that there are 5 phases as a link one to another. On the other hand, qualitative research is a subjective. It cannot be generalized, because whatever the one group of the particular study conducted, it cannot be similar finding with other study or other focus group or other phenomena. So and also this is very difficult, is that the quality research is very difficult to conclude what is the finding about it. And on the other hand, the quantitative research is very easy to conclude what is about the findings and how it can be implementation, and how it can be contribute to the theories. So because of the is easy to prepare the paper quantitative research, that's why most of the researchers they go for the quantitative research. On the other hand, the mixed method is quite challenging, because if you use a two method, one is a qualitative research and another quantitative research, and it's a very difficult to conclude and very difficult to focus what is about the research findings, what is the research objectives. That's why the most of the researchers they go for the quantitative research rather than mixed method and quality research.
Yes, very nicely explained, Doctor. This is the again very nice suggestion for them, and it's all about the publication as well. The second question is very much related to it, since you are the expert. They want your opinion on that. That Prof, share your thoughts. When is the quantitative research methodology appropriate? Yes, please.
Okay, quantitative research is appropriate because when you have the appropriate literature support, because whenever you want to do quantitative research, you need uh, appropriate citations is support from the literature. Well, if you have this research citation, and from the citation if you find that there is some gap, this is the research already conducted but there is still gap. It can be gap in terms of the implication, it can be gap in terms of the theories, it can be gap in terms of the methodology. When you find any gap, so you can prepare quantitative research and you can prepare, you can submit. So my opinion that if your paper has a at least one contribution. There are three types of contribution in the quantitative research. It can be theoretical contribution, it can be practical contribution, it can be methodological contribution. So from the three contribution, if you have the all the three, it's a best paper. If you have the true implication with the theory and practical, is also good. If you have at least one implication, is theory implication only or the practical implication, even if it's a good, you can also go for the publication.
Very nicely said. Thank you very much once again. Prof, they want to know about the that what is the sample size for pilot study? Yes, please.
Okay, the pilot survey minimum requirement is a 15 sample size. 15 to until 100 can be go for, but I suggest you can take 30 is okay, because quantitative analysis is a acceptable if is a sample size is a 30. So even if ask for the minimum 15, my suggestion go for the at least 30 to 50, 30 to 50, then it can be more appropriate result. Because if you go for the validity test after you collected the pilot sample survey, if you want to test the reliability and validity test using some software such like SPSS, then you need at least 50 sample size to find out the validity. Okay.
Very nicely said once again, Prof. Thank you for such a elaborative answer. Prof, another question is please guide about time frame in cross-sectional studies. How much time frame is required for cross-sectional study? Yes, please.
It depends, because you can go for 3 months, you can go for 6 months. It's depend on your research objectives and your time. Because if it's like you are conducting research and you have the project is for 1 year, so my suggestion not to spend more than 3 months. If your project is a 6 months, so not to spend more than 1 month or 2 months. If your project is a 3 months or like a undergraduate research, the 4 months only, one semester, so your data collection should be 2 weeks to 4 weeks, maximum 4 weeks. So it depends on the time of your project time. So based on the time, if it's a PhD, then maybe it can go for the 6 months, 6 months to 1 year. But 1 year is too much. So 6 months is quite enough to collect data, any data.
Very rightly said, Prof. Thank you again. And I like the way you answering is you differentiate between the master level and the PhD level, and you make it very easy for people to understand it. And this is why we invite the top researchers like you to give their opinion, because people follow you and they listen to you, and whatever you recommend, that means a lot to them. So thank you very much for such a elaborative answer. Prof, there is another very interesting question. They want your opinion on that. That as a researcher, Prof, please share your thoughts. That how do you see the data collection from social media platforms? Are they justifiable? Or please share your thoughts on it. Yes, please.
Okay, it's a very critical question because of nowadays many of the researchers they are using the social media to collect data, especially the pandemic situation, because we don't have the option to go physical way to collect the data because of we have the situation. So many of the researchers they go for the data collection using the social media, and but you can collect data. You need to be careful. You need to find the appropriate respondent, such like you are collecting data for the bank customers, and you send someone who never have the bank account, don't have the experience about the bank. So if you collect the data from that respondent, that could be considered as an outlier. If you have the many outlier in your data, it will reflect your result. You will not get the expected result. So you need to be careful whenever you choosing the respondent through the social media. Social media is okay, acceptable. You can collect data, but when you sending your message someone to respond your research survey questionnaire, you must know that he or she is a appropriate respondent or related to your research. So don't just randomly say, sending the all people who are not related to your survey questionnaire, because if they fill up given the response without knowing the research, that it gonna affect your data, and the affected data will cost you to find you the appropriate result.
Very nicely said once again, Prof. Very intelligently you answered this question. Again, yeah, it was very technical question. Uh, this could be the best answer which you have already given. Thank you, Prof. We have one last question since it's almost the time. Prof, the question is in part A and part B. The first is Prof, tell us any best quantitative research textbooks in the social sciences. And second part of it is the Prof, which is the best research methodology book for the beginners? Yes, please.
Okay, so the quantitative research methodology, you can find several books from the online sources. For me, I think we study one of the research book during our PhD, which is a research methodology, business research methodology. I think methods written by Uma Second. We call that book is actually Bible for the quantitative research. Uma Second is a written very, the book is a very easy way. It can be understood by anyone. It can be understood by undergraduate student, even the PhD holder. So you can follow the Uma Second for the analyzing the data. You need to find out the appropriate the analyzing book, so such like if you use a structure equation modeling or the multivariate data analyzing, so you can use the Joseph Hare book, is a multivariate data analysis book. It's a very popular book. I think you can find it from the online. There book is PDF book is, I think, available in online. I saw that, but I cannot share it here. So some book you can use it. And for the beginner, as I said, the Uma Sakaran book is easy to anyone. You can read the Uma Sakaran book. If you don't find, you can email me. I have the soft copy. Maybe I can share with you.
Very nicely said. And Prof, really, the Omar Sakran book is still lying on my table because it is so nicely written and so easy that I usually recommend to my PhD students, particularly, that if you want to learn in an easy way, then the Omar Sakran is the good one
Yeah.
because it is written very well. And that's the beauty of the expert. They give you the best book, and out of that book, which is written in more easy way. Thank you very much. Prof, what is your message to the world as a teacher, researcher, trainer, learner, professional, and educator? Yes, please.
Okay, for the researcher is actually is a continuous process. It's an endless job. So if you want to be the good researcher, you need to keep continue your work, keep learn new things, and make a network with other people, expert people. Try to communicate with them and follow the other people works. Even myself, I follow the other people who are the good in the research, and read lot the recent papers which is published recently. You get the idea. And that's the thing. So if you sometimes, like, if you don't understand something, you seek for the expert opinion, because expert, they can guide you. Even myself, whenever I don't know something, I'm confused, so I try to communicate with the expert, and they guided me. And that's the things, this is my guideline. So the researcher is actually, they work for the society, for the other people. They never expect a return from the other. So if you want to be the researcher, you need to sacrifice a lot. Maybe it can sacrifice your own time, your family time, but your work will impact to the society, the other people. That's the my message. Thank you.
Very nicely given message to the world, and I really love the way you explained everything, your slides, your description, and follow up by a wonderful hands-on practice as well to make it more easy for the people to learn it. Thank you very much for all the wonderful discussion. Yes, indeed, I would say that research methodology is a bit technical part of the thesis, and you need to learn this properly from the experts like Dr. Ahmed. He's very good in the research methodology aspect and overall the research work, and that's why he's considered to be academic leader. Moreover, I would say that do follow the distinguished guest speaker through his research work, and you can email him for future learning and guidance. He is very generous and always ready to help the people. Moreover, wonderful explanation, powerful content which great speaker has already elaborated will help you to learn and develop your thesis properly regarding the research methodology. So take advantage of all the information, important tips and suggestions shared by the expert. At the end, I would say that that is all we have time for today. Thank you once again to Dr. Selim Ahmed for your wonderful presentation, content, and everything. And I love the way your energy level, which was so great. I was so highly engaged by your flow that I really loved the way you explained. And I would also like to thank our audience who joined us. If you have any additional question about the information shared today, please email to us or you can connect to the speaker directly through his email or on social media account. Thank you all for your support and liking our session. Stay tuned as many sessions are on the way. Please do not miss any session. Until next session, take care of yourself. Bye bye.